I was real like I think that they've had an incredibly successful 60 games and that their front office should be really credited because when this season began, I was like, to me, it feels like there's a 1 in 5 chance, that's 20%, that their season could go horribly, horribly wrong because their starting pitching is in such bad shape.
Hello and welcome to the Pinstripe Post. My name is Ryan Sampson, but he's the star of the show, Joel Sherman. Today is Monday, June 9th. The New York Yankees lost the series over the weekend to the Boston Red Sox. They did win the series against Cleveland Guardians since the last time we spoke to Joel, and we're here to break it all down, talk about what happened this weekend, what happened to the pitching staff, what's going on with DJ LeMahieu, what's going on with this offense. We'll break it all down. But before we get to any of that, as always, Joel, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Ryan. Good weekend. I was out at the game last night, the nationally televised game that felt like an old Red Sox Yankee game, high scoring, lasted forever. And you wondered until kind of the last pitch who was going to, was something going to happen there.
And it felt like that was like symbolic for the entire weekend for this series. Besides game one, games 2 and 3, it kind of felt like, all right, blow for blow. Like they're like each team seems like they're within chance of winning this game, and the Yankees are trying to claw back. And then just yesterday and Saturday, it just eventually at the end they fell short, and they really didn't have a chance to win at the end. But that's just kind of like how it felt for me as a fan watching the games. And I don't want to get too frustrated about this Yankees team and what happened over the weekend, Joel, because we'll start here with first pitch. The Red Sox have been playing pretty poorly all year long, like even for this 6-week stretch. And I don't know, the Yankees just seem to have ran into a bad weekend for the Red Sox to finally hit the ball well and put some decent, okay pitching together. I mean, I don't know, Joel. Like, I'm not reading too much into this series as a fan, man. Like, oh, I can't believe they lost to the Red Sox. It's not fun to watch, but I just think that they just ran into a bad opponent who had a good weekend, if that makes sense.
Yeah, look, things happen in 3 game series. I always point out that the Dodgers are really good and the Angels are terrible, and the Angels swept the Dodgers earlier this season. And these things are going to happen. The one thing that stands out to me is, look, the Yankees have a little bit of a history over the last few years of breaking out strong and then kind of petering as the season goes along. And I think one of the topics we've talked about on this show, Ryan, is like if guys have performed at probably 100 to 125% of what we thought was going to be their likely outcome. And if we're beginning to have regression to the mean for multiple players, then I mean, again, like nobody, what would have been your settle point for Paul Goldschmidt on March 27th when the season began? Like 265,
Yeah.
good at bats, play the field, hit 15 homers, that whole thing. He was hitting well over 300. If there's going to be regression to the mean, it's going to be down in the 220s for a while, probably, right? What's your expectation for Trent Grisham? What was your expectation for Ben Rice? What was your expectation for Carlos Rodon? What was your expectation, if you had an expectation at all? Um,
For Ryan
why am I
Yarbrough.
blanking? For Ryan Yarborough. So like that's 25% of your team that was performing so at the upper level or beyond the upper level of what your expectation was. And the Yankees, one of the reasons they played well this year is they have very few players playing below like say 80% of what your expectation line was. Like there were very few kind of complete failures. And so if you're going to get kind of mass regression from the mean, and I would also then argue the divisions regression to the mean, like until 2 weeks ago, every team is pretty much under 500 since last All-Star break and this season. And we've seen this has been a pretty good 2 weeks for the other teams in the AL East. Toronto and Tampa have gotten a few games over 500. The Red Sox had a good weekend after not playing well recently. Even the Orioles have stirred a little life. They probably have given away too much this year, but to survive this. But they are clearly playing better over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So here you have the Yankees playing at kind of their peak, the rest of the division playing below expectations. Are we simply seeing some where this, again, on March 27th, I think we probably would have said, if we like the Yankees in this division, it's going to be a close race to the end. There's a lot of good teams in the division, including we probably thought Boston would be one of those
Yeah.
teams. So I just have a wonder, are we about to see some period of the Yankees settling down? And to that point, does it help them? You know, they didn't have LeMahieu most of this year. Can LeMahieu help? They haven't had Stanton most of the year. Can Stanton help? And at some point, do they get Luis Heel back? That kind of stuff. Because I just, you know, uh, Paul Goldschmidt's not hitting 365,
No.
right? Like he's not. And by the way, I guess I should give up my high level expectation for Judge, but I assume Judge isn't going to hit 390 something or 400. So like if he comes down to a spectacular year, 350, that's a lot of regression for him even that's coming. Now, I think he's probably told us with his play over the last 7 or 8 years, we should probably have our imagination fully open to what's possible for him. But, sitting here today, if I were to ask you, what do you think Judge will hit this year? I would say my thing would be Judge will probably hit 350 this year. That he's done so much work up to 390, that 350, which is spectacular. When's the last time a Yankee hit 350? When does anybody hit 350 in the sport anymore with the way the game is played and also give you power? So I would say that's a spectacular season, but it would mean that he's going to hit a whole lot less the rest of this year. And I think that there's a couple of, like I think Trent Grisham is heading towards Trent Grishamville.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. I mean, I think you hit on the three of the big ones here in this lineup and why the regression has seemed to have happened. Grisham's one. Ben Rice has definitely slowed down, and I like Paul Goldschmidt. You can't expect him to hit 360 all year long. But I will say the Judge part, when you're asking me now, I don't think 375 is out of a possibility for him. I mean, just because he walks so much, and when the games get closer and they're more competitive towards the end of the season, if he's batting, let's say, Joel, 385 or 380, and it's July and it's getting mid-July, teams are going to stop throwing to him. Like he's going to walk a lot. I think he has a chance to be over 350. Like if that's what you're asking me about the Judge part. But,
well, I said I think 350.
Yeah.
375 and 350 are different. But like again, I didn't really know that I'd ever see somebody in a cleaner environment hit 62 homers, and I watched him hit 62 homers, and I quite frankly. He didn't hit 62 homers last year, but I thought he was a better offensive player last year than he was when he hit 62 homers. And I think he's a better offensive player this year than he was last year. So my imagination is fully open. And I dare say it is. I wish I could easily do it. I am curious, when was the last time anyone in the sport hit 350? Like batting average has plummeted. The league-wide average is about 243 right now, 244 right in there, which is where it's been for the last few years. I mean, to say that somebody's going to hit 100 points over the league average while having a high 400 on-base percentage and slugging at the top of the sport, I mean, it's top ring MVP season. So I hope nobody takes 350 as an insult. It's just the reality that like we haven't seen somebody dabble really at 380 and 390 for a very, very long time. And the pitching has only gotten better since that time, with stuff, with movement, with velocity, with the willingness to bring in one power arm after another from the bullpen. So, I mean, 350 would be remarkable. But it would mean if he gets there that he'll hit worse the rest of the season. And as we know, he carries the team.
Yeah.
So often, so if that were to happen, see, one thing I don't think will happen, Ryan, is as long as he stays healthy, like he'll do 350 and the power will stay the same. The impact, I don't imagine like there'll be some giant slide where he doesn't have impact. It's just that batting average is so hard in the sport these days.
No, I hear you, Joel, but I think they're going to need Judge to be Judge still for the months of June and July, because I think I talked about this with you 2 weeks ago.
August and September and October.
And October. No doubt.
They're built around this guy. But this is the plow horse.
I agree, but there's also this sense as a fan, and I talked about it a couple weeks ago with you when we looked it up. The Yankees over the last couple of years have been very subpar in the months of June and July the last couple of years. And I just wonder if there's something to that. Is that just a slog in the marathon of the season? Like, should I be concerned that the Yankees are going to have another rough June and July? Is this like the preliminary, this is the subtle signs here that we're seeing from this weekend versus the Red Sox?
So I do think that once is once, twice is you could still convince yourself is some level of coincidence, but we've had some version of this for a few years. And I thought last year what was fascinating, Ryan, was they played well, really well, exceptionally. I think they had the best record in the sport, or certainly in the AL, to about this moment, which was when Cole was coming back. And the thought was, wow, they held the fort while Cole was out. They held the fort specifically because their starting pitching was so good without him. Like they collectively, five guys had an ERA similar to what Cole had in 2023 when he won the Cy Young.
Yeah.
And it was five guys going around. And it's almost like they let go of the rope. Like Cole came back and they said, oh, let's take a deep breath. And there seemed to be this thing. I don't see that here. Like, I don't think anyone's sitting around saying, hey, when Stanton comes back, it's just not the same impact as Cole. But I do think, just again, if I were looking at it, my two concern things on the Yankees is one, just how many players have played above their head. Yeah. And unless you think they're all going to have remarkable years, there's going to be regression. Number two, one of the strengths of the team is usually the length of the bullpen. And this bullpen has been it's better than most and worse than traditional Yankee bullpens of the last few years. Listeners, viewers of this show know I am a huge fan of Jonathan Loáisiga. I think he's an incredibly talented guy. So when I'm watching him have troubles, am I watching a guy shaking off a year missed of rust and is still working back to something? Because I think his high-end stuff, the guy who we saw at his best when he was healthy pre-elbow surgery, I thought could handle the 8th or 9th inning for a high-end contender. And if you watched his first inning yesterday, you would say, aha, there it is. And then in the second inning, he gets clobbered, including giving up 2 homers. He gave up 2 homers in back-to-back, I believe, against the Dodgers about 10 days ago, 10 days ago. So he's a key figure. Obviously, Weaver is out for several more weeks, and he's the best of what they have. Devin Williams is still a little bit of a heart attack. Do they ever get the best of Devin Williams? To me, Ian Hamilton is working his way to the minor leagues. He's one of the few guys in their bullpen who has an option. So if they want to do a reach down for, say, Jake Cousins when he gets fully healthy off of his rehab, or they want to see if J.D. Brubaker, who they're about a week away from having to make a decision on him, his rehab, I believe, is up, don't hold me to this, like June 16th. And he has no option. And it's like, who the hell's J.D. Brubaker? Well, he's somebody they've taken almost 2 years with to try to rehab, to get on the mound. And as we've seen, when the Yankees like an arm, the arm generally is better than where they've been previously for the anonymous guys. The Clay Holmes, Luke Weavers, etc. So I don't think that's impossible that he will come back at some point. And if there's no room in the rotation and he's being stretched out as a starter, do they try to put him in the bullpen?
Or let me ask you this, Joel. Could they potentially, if they bring up Brubaker because they don't want to lose him, right, at that whatever that date is coming up here in a week, and they option Ian Hamilton down, the gymnastics that they could do here, would they put Yarbrough back into the bullpen?
Maybe, because I think they want to keep Warren stretched out, though I think Warren's stuff would be fascinating in the bullpen, considering what his strikeout rate is as a starter, what might be unleashed. And I think the September-October Yankees could conceivably have Warren in the bullpen. Someplace out there is Marcus Stroman. Does he come back and put Yarbrough in the bullpen? Like that kind of thing. So they have some internal options, but clearly, I think 4 or 5 weeks from now, they're going to have a starter from outside the organization and at least a reliever from outside the organization. But in that month, what I'm looking at right now, if I were playing the what concerns me about the Yankee game, it's the 20% of your roster was playing so far over its head. And there have been little indicators now over about the last 10 days, 2 weeks, that maybe those guys are starting to play well below to get to whatever that expectation level is. And we are used to the Yankees, Aaron Boone being able to go to various places in his bullpen for answers and usually getting them. And the bullpen has shaken a lot more than it has lengthwise. So I, look, I just think so much of this gets solved if Devin Williams is good.
Yeah.
If Devin Williams is the guy who pitched for the Brewers for 5 years and he gets to that, and then you get Weaver back in, say, 3 weeks, now you're dealing with the last 6 outs. And I'm not saying anybody can mix and match in the sixth and seventh inning, but it is such an easier game to do if you get there. So I just if if I were a Yankee fan, I would like Devin Williams is an important guy. He's really an important guy. If he could, and at this point, 2.5 months into this, I I have some real questions if he's able to kind of like really entrench himself and make his team, the fan base, etc., comfortable. I just wonder if there's some walls moving in on him. It's his free agent year. He upgraded from Milwaukee to New York as far as intensity, attention, media, etc., expectations. It's a tough, and he started poorly. And he's kind of in the quicksand a little. And for better or worse, I don't want to relitigate this. For better or worse, he's the face of the beard
Yeah.
situation. So
Yeah.
it's always an easy thing to go, you let this guy wear a beard, he's got to be good, whatever bullshit there is there. But because I think that's nothing.
But he's the but what you're pointing though, it's the critical piece though. If you had him as your lockdown ninth inning, I know every time I can give him the ball, it makes a lot of the decisions with the rest of the bullpen easier, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, and also just that if there was a little less stress around it
Yeah.
all. Like what Weaver was making it look easy. He was making something very, very difficult look easy. And most guys don't do that. Most guys like shake a little and you're walking the high wire and you're like, are we going to land the helicopter or not land the helicopter today? Kind of stuff. And I think Weaver had kind of spoiled the Yanks and maybe the fan base a little. It's like 12, 15 pitches. He doesn't even get to ball three. Nobody gets the ball out of the infield, and everyone's in a handshake line. So they missed that. And, just, and by the way, if Weaver in this 3 week period would regain the closer job and Weaver could be used as a seventh, eighth inning attack dog, I actually think that sets them up better.
That was Williams regains the closer role and then Weaver comes back. Yeah,
because that was the intentionality of this, Ryan, right? Is Weaver
Devin Williams would be your closer
Devin
and Weaver
Williams
would be your
would
attack
close.
dog to go any part of the lineup.
Like the two, 3, and 4 hitter were up in the seventh inning of a 1-run game. Throw Luke Weaver at him.
Yeah. And they haven't had that ability much this year because of Devin Williams' struggles in the ninth.
Right. So I think he's such an important guy for them. And, this is a moment, right? Without Weaver around, can he kind of find Devin Williams, who's been one of the finest, 5 best relievers in the sport over the last 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, he was able to close it out Friday night. It was a little bit more shaky in the Cleveland series. So I think you've hit on two huge things here, Joel. The regression of players that were playing above their head has led to some blips on the radar here for this Yankees offense. And the other thing is the bullpen has not been as lights out as you had hoped in the terms of what you're saying in length and the options that you have. I think the other thing that we could hit on here too is the rotation, right? So the rotation had an incredible month in May, right? Like they reminded you of what you said last year, like the starting rotation was able to give the ball every fifth day. Guys were able to give you length. They had the best rotation in baseball for the first couple of months of the season. So they just had an incredible month in May, and now we've seen a couple more blips here in June. I wonder if that magic carpet ride has kind of come to a full halt here as well. And is there concern after a couple of blips here that the rotation, it might be a real concern here over the coming weeks?
look, if we're going to do this game with Aaron Judge, who's one of the, I think at this point, regular season wise, staking a claim to one of the greatest players ever at this point, right? Then we certainly have to say Max Fried will probably have a regression also. Because if he's going to say finish the season with someplace between a 265 and a 325 ERA, which is probably if we were sitting, again, I always encourage, if you and I were playing the game before the season, we said, what do you think Max Fried's first year in New York ERA would be?
3.3,
I probably would say
3.4.
like 310, 320,
Okay.
330, someplace in there. He's very good. I thought he could handle New York. Well, I mean, it's like 130, 140. So like, through a third of the season. So what past a third, we're at 40% now. So like, what will it look like over the last 60% to get to like even 2.8? So there's probably some regression coming from the guy who's been the pitching judge for them. And Rodon, again, on March 27th, greatest dream. What did that look like? Even if you want to like put it at 120%, it wasn't this, right? This has been all-star. This has been top 5, 6, 7 Cy Young for the American League. I don't think we saw that coming. Ryan Yarbrough felt like, now you always could be surprised, but like when Ryan Yarbrough signed on the dawn of the season for $2 million, it's a little, now sometimes it's Luke Weaver. When the Yankees gave Luke Weaver a 2-year, $4 million contract, people were like, what the hell are they doing? And well, they kind of know what they're doing. They know when it comes to pitching what they like. So I just think that even sitting today, looking at the group, I would say on July 31st, 375, 385 rotation ERA for this group, that means there's runs to give up out there, right? And then there's bullpen that's got to cover for them because that's going to be 5 or 6 innings pretty regularly for a couple of these guys. If I were looking at a pivot guy here, is who's Clark Schmidt?
Yeah.
Like you could convince me Clark Schmidt is 340, 350, and you could convince me he's 440 to 460 ERA. And the difference in that run, because it's probably in 3 or 4 or 5 extra outs when he's starting to protect the bullpen and protect the back end of the rotation. He's the pivot guy in there, right? You got Warren and Yarborough, you got Fried and Rodon. Who's Schmidt? If you told me Schmidt is going to pitch like he did healthy last year for that first like 7 weeks last year, when again, he was on an all-star track for 7 weeks last year, 7, 8 weeks. Or was that an anomaly? That guy can't stay healthy throwing the ball like that. It's why there's so many questions there that I think, like if we were playing the gambling site thing, how many starting pitchers do they acquire between now and July 31st? I think you'd have to set it at 1.5.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Like it feels like 1 is definite, but do they Ryan, my suspicion is this conversation we're having, versions of it are going on in the Yankee front office, which is like, we think we're good enough to make the playoffs, right? That's probably what they're saying in the Yankee front office. If Fried starts game 1, do we really trust Rodon to start game 2? Or between now and July 31st, do we have to find that guy? And then kind of again, part of the idea of Fried Cole was to limit the stress on Rodon, limit the whatever. Can you push him to 3? And then it's either Hill or Schmidt for 4. And also, by the way, all of that helps you get to October, right? It would all feel better if Ryan Yarbrough were in the bullpen and Will Warren were a AAA as your depth.
Yeah.
That would probably be the thing. Let's make up a name, and I know our aggregator fucks out there will take this and make something of it, and we can't help that. I'm sorry, beep it out.
I know. I always look at my producer Brian because we giggle every time you say aggregator fucks on the show.
Well, it's just because I'm going to say one thing.
I know.
It's going to be provided the side. It's like I'll do the proviso. I don't know who the Yankees are interested starting pitching wise. I don't know if this player is available. I don't know if he'll be traded. His team is in the race right now. His team is in the race. But I could imagine the Brewers looking in the mirror and saying, like over the next 6, 7 weeks, one of our strengths is depth of rotation. We're always a team that's trying to play ahead. They traded Josh Hader at the deadline a couple of years ago because they had Devin Williams and because they were contending, but they're always thinking about like if we are not flexible and moving, we're going to fall off the edge of the cliff. So we always have to take our good players who we can't keep for a long time. Well, Freddie Peralta's been on a great contract for multiple years. But next year is the option year. It's an $8 million option. Then he's a free agent after 26. Probably the last best time to cash it in at the kind of close to the top of the market is July. Freddie Peralta starts game 2 for the Yankees behind Fried, to me. Now, again, maybe you play the game. Hey, Devin Williams didn't translate from career in Milwaukee to here. I don't know if I want to try Freddie Peralta, but I've seen Freddie Peralta. I think his stuff plays, whatever. If he were to become available, for example, I think the Yankees have to push a lot. By the way, they'll be sitting there with 7 other people at the poker table. If Freddie Peralta is available on that contract and that ability, it's going to be quite a race to get him. But that level of starting pitcher is, I could make a case the Mets would go after it. By the way, the guy who acquired Freddie Peralta for the Milwaukee Brewers is David Stearns.
Yeah.
So, like, he's going to know a lot about that player, for example. But it's just that guy. Like,
those are the discussions the Yankees are currently having, like you're saying,
right.
Joel.
And
like,
I think
who is going to start game 2 for us?
I think that's the frame thing.
Yeah.
Ryan, what you said. I've been saying this is who starts one of the first 2 games of a series, and we kind of then have a Rodon, Schmidt, Hill decision. And by the way, I put it at 1.5. If you told me it was 2 starters, because ultimately down deep they're going, Ryan Yarbrough has been a bit of smoke and mirrors here. Like, we know this guy's been around for a while. He just had his Cody Petit moment for us. Let's get in and out kind of thing. Or maybe he's throwing it harder. He's striking out more. I got it. Maybe he's good. I'm not, people find themselves later in their career. Players get better now. There's so much to get players better, materially, coaching wise, technology wise, etc. He could be better. He's clearly a very serious minded guy if you've ever been around him. So maybe he's gotten better. But I would go under 1.5, but I would not go under 0.5.
Well,
I think the Yankees trade for a starter, trade for a reliever, and trade for a righty bat that gets Grisham or Dominguez off the field against lefties or plays second or third.
Listen, I think you're asking the right questions that I'm sure the highly paid Yankees officials are trying to figure out themselves, and how many starters we need to acquire, who's starting game 2. I just wonder, Joel, from them in a current where they are situation-wise for this point of the season, are they more in tune of let's give June a chance to play out to get more data on all of these players that we just highlighted and see if we can actually make that decision? Or do they pull the trigger quickly because let's say the Brewers, putting feelers out there, hey, Freddie Peralta might become available here in the next couple of weeks. Or
Ryan, just so you know, as I have lines in the water at all times asking questions, and nobody has come close to saying that there are serious trade discussions and everybody thinks the same thing's going to happen. You're going to have to clear the draft, which is the Sunday and Monday of the All-Star break. And then you're in the 2-week sprint to the deadline. Like, teams are the only team that has kind of, to me, signaled to some teams, hey, if this goes badly over the next few weeks, we're open, is the Orioles. And of course, the White Sox are open. The Rockies should be open. Who knows? They're not even in the major leagues anymore. I'm not even sure statistics against them should count. Those teams, but those teams are those teams because they don't really have a lot to trade. Though I'll say this is it's not a trade deadline thing because you can't guess at the trade deadline. I wonder what a really good pitching shop might do with Herman Marquez and Kyle Freeland. Like, as a Griffin Canning off-season kind of, we have a good pitching lab. these guys have some profiles. Freeland's a ground ball guy. Marquez still has stuff. I'd be fascinated. That's so off the beaten path because you can't do it in July. You
Right.
can't, like
The,
a real contender can't say, the Orioles, I think mistakenly and wrongheadedly did this last July where they did this with Trevor Rogers, where they're like, we can fix Trevor Rogers here. But the problem is, if you can't, what happens? So you've got to go for something sure than that. And I think they're going to be in short supply, and I don't think they're available yet. I don't think. And think until the All-Star game, you got to fix yourself.
yeah, so it's
And
the internal options is what you're hinting at here for the next
so
couple weeks.
does Stroman, Brubaker, Hill, and Cousins are options, I think, over the next 2 to 4 weeks.
What's the deal
At
with
some
Heel? Because we haven't heard much from him.
Yeah, I think they're really slow. I think that the lats and the obliques are stuff that we go, oh, this is the path, and then I think they're by degree, and I think setbacks are easy, and the path is pulled.
Mm,
Like better to make sure that I have you July 10th to the end of the season than push for June 26th. I
okay.
think that's what's always going on. But could something worse be going on? I'm sure our friends with the Yankees wouldn't announce it out loud unless you were really pushing hard to find that out right now. No, nothing's come up. I was at the ballpark last night. It didn't come up.
Yeah, it's just you can feel the slow play there just because of how little information we've gotten from it. And same thing with Stanton. It feels like they're slow playing that still. Because he's
But
been
I would
doing a
say
lot of
this
hitting.
about this. Yeah, I will say this about the Stanton one. Without knowing this from somebody directly saying it to me, I think when it comes to Stanton, that Stanton has had so many injuries and is so frustrated by it and has had setbacks along the way is he's gone to the Yankees and said, please don't give a day-to-day update about me because I don't want to miss deadlines. I don't want to disappoint. I do think Stanton is one of the more respected guys in his clubhouse, that people know where his heart is at when it comes to. I think LeMahieu falls into this also. Like, I think these are oft injured guys, but nobody's sitting around the clubhouse. This isn't a Jacoby Ellsbury thing,
Yeah.
where guys are sitting around the clubhouse like this on Jacoby Ellsbury. Like, really? Like, how hurt kind of stuff, you know? I think they know these players are hurt because these players are dying to play and dying to try to win a championship with this franchise in specific. And I think Stanton very much wants to stay out of give as broad a answer as possible. Because when I've tried to be specific with people who are good to me and are usually very specific, I'm getting the kind of squirrely answers I don't normally get. And I'm like, and I think I know Stanton well enough and some people around him to know that, like, there was some emotional toll to this injury. Like where he's to me been very much. It's funny, like him and Rodell. And by the way, LeMahieu doesn't say much, but like these are stand-up guys. I went and talked to LeMahieu yesterday. I mean, I had to ask LeMahieu, it was the subject of what I was writing. I was asking is, like, do you think you have kind of about a month to prove that you're an everyday player? And LeMahieu answers the question. Like, most players are pros. These guys are real pros. And the fact that Stanton hasn't been around and is generally a real pro when it comes to doing this stuff um, suggests to me that he's told the Yankees, please, guys, this is tearing at my soul. When I'm here, but let's not give a daily state of the Stanton.
Gotcha. For you and what you've been trying to estimate with his return, do we think that's in the next couple weeks? Like, do we feel that, or is that truly an unknown still?
I think it's closer than not closer.
Okay.
And I think his body is such, in some ways, and you're a Yankee fan, you're going to feel totally hexed by this when I say this, is like Judge is a miracle. Right? Like he had a lot of like kind of injuries, many of them freak, right? He got hit by a pitch, he ran into a wall. It's amazing how healthy he stays at his size and his strength because we see Stanton at kind of very similar specs. Simply, he's like there's the saying about the banks, too big to fail. Like he's almost too big to stay healthy.
Yeah.
It's like there's so much torque in his swing, and he does everything with such ferocity that it's like maybe Stanton is normal for 6'5", 6'6", and that like the strongest human being you might ever meet in your life. And Judge is just an outlier to a level that you can't understand, that he has not like destroyed his lower body, his hips, and let's not undervalue is he's a hard worker who's investing a lot in his body, and that's part of it. But I don't think Stanton, like if you see Stanton, you'd say, yeah, like this is what the Greeks used to like make marble statues out of. Like he's clearly worked on it.
Yeah, it's the marvel of genetics and how different players' bodies react to different ways you train, different ways you play. You get.
But that was
no,
that was my way of saying, Ryan, that like he's the kind of guy who could have a setback. Like if you told me he never played this year, I would not put that at 0% because like this is a guy, he just breaks down a lot. Now, again, I think he's going to play in the next short period of time, but for how long, I don't know. How much faith can the Yankees put in that? That's why I think they have to go get a righty bat because like his righty bat really matters, but they can't put it on the diamond. And they can't trust that it's going to be there tomorrow. The same thing like with LeMahieu. Like even if LeMahieu is the guy who's begun June really well, like how do you just say between now and the last game of the season, I believe he's going to stay upright? I think it's their third need as they go through this, but Brian Cashman's front office has shown when they have this kind of team in July, he'll go into every bucket at least once, starter, reliever, bat. And I think he'll go into each of those buckets at least once, starter, reliever, bat.
Yep, it feels that way. And Joel,
righty bat in particular.
Yeah, no, and the reason you bring that up too is because look, Jason Dominguez, while it's great that he's tried to be a switch hitter, it's not working from the right side of the plate from him. And the stats are showing it. Enough sample size I feel like we've seen. But I also wonder, Joel, and maybe this
Grisham, who started hot left on left, has stopped hitting in general, but has specifically looked bad against lefty pitching. So I think there's that. Can I tell you one that I've thought about a lot over the weekend? And look, we're not going to know the answer to this for years, but are they going to regret trading Carlos Narvaez, who was literally hitting cleanup for the Red Sox and probably had the biggest hit of the game yesterday off of Rodon,
yes,
and would probably, if the season ended today, finish second or third for AL Rookie of the Year. And the Yankees got a pitching prospect who's really pitching well at high A. They really held that, like the Red Sox kept coming at them. From what I heard, I was at I think we were leaving the winter meetings, and I kept hearing at the winter meetings, Red Sox are carming hard, and it's a funny thing to hear because like Carlos Narvaez, it was a guy who was up for 2 cups of coffee, like with the Yankees last year. And you're like, people are telling me the Red Sox are coming hard after Narvaez. And I'm like, really? Like what could the asking price on Carlos Narvaez be? But the Yankees have done such a great job developing catchers, over the last 5 to 8 years.
Augustin Ramirez.
Yeah, who's hitting, but, there's still some questions about his catching, if he's going to hold up there. But the bat certainly looks like it's going to play for power early on. But like even, like Jose Trevino and Luis Torrens and Kyle Higashioka, like there's a lot of Yankee trained Ben Rothfer, a lot of Yankee trained catching throughout the sport. You can't keep them all. You have a 40-man roster. If you have more than 3 catchers on your 40-man roster or 4 catchers, it's too much. But like, as great as like the JC Escara story has been, the Yankees would be better off with a righty complement to Austin Wells. And quite frankly, Narvaez has outplayed Wells this year.
Yes.
To this point. I mean, I'm not throwing away. I still think Austin Wells is going to be a top 10 catcher in the sport. Probably towards the bottom 10. Hey, guys who could catch and hit homers, they're in short supply, Ryan.
I know, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up that it seems like Major League Baseball is going to the ABS system next year. Like
Yeah, but right, but they're going to play this year, and the ABS will affect 3 pitches a game, maybe.
Okay.
2, 3. Like
it won't be so you're saying it won't be a full all game long like
no,
automatic balls and strikes.
challenge system.
That's it, just the challenge system.
Like the minor leagues. They're
Okay.
not going to have, it's going to be a couple of pitches a game. So stealing a pitch is still going to have a
Okay.
value. They're going to play this season beforehand, and I think Wells has real value as a catcher. But a lefty righty combination of Wells and Narvaez, like that would be a righty bat. Now Narvaez hasn't hit lefties real well this season, though he had the big hit off of Rodon yesterday. But still, that righty complement to Wells and the ability to probably even rest Wells a little more than they are confident of doing with Esquera would probably have. I mean, it's spilled milk, and we won't get the answer until we see if this pitching prospect is good. But starting catchers are hard to come by, two-way starting catchers. And Narvaez is a really good defender who's hitting cleanup for the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Now, some of that necessity, but he's having a good offensive year.
No, I hear you, Joel. And you won't know about the prospect until you see him eventually if he makes to the majors. I will say, though, the reason why I brought up the right-handed bat is because Dominguez, again, wasn't pitch hit last night. I thought in a scenario where DJ LeMahieu came up, could have pinch hit for him, could have pinch hit for Esquera. I do wonder, and this is versus right-handed pitching. And
he did pinch hit for Esquera, though, with Wells, right?
With Wells, correct. But
well, you want to do a one-person move and leave Dominguez as an option, right? Because Wells is going to go into the game to catch.
Right.
And you get enough of an advantage, Dominguez over Wells, to do a three-person move there. I think you want to keep Dominguez as a running, hitting option on the bench there.
I just wonder, though, when you had yesterday, Dominguez doesn't, he's really good left-handed. Like, he can hit the hell out of the ball left-handed. It feels like he should be an everyday player now with the Trent Grisham struggles and the regression. And that let Jason Dominguez.
He might be. I think we might be heading there.
And that's.
I think that he doesn't want to disrespect that Grisham was really good for 6 weeks and really helped the team. And that I think he thinks it's his best defensive outfield. Rodon has been way more of a ground ball pitcher this year, but that's not his history. So you probably want your best defensive outfield for him. You think about it a little more at home, the big left field, the whole thing. But I think Grisham is playing himself into fourth outfieldom again. So I suspect that it will be like I think if you track it, and I haven't done this, but like if you play, Judge is playing every day in right. And you have to figure out Grisham, Bellinger, Dominguez, Rice, Goldschmidt. That's kind of like the five guys that four of them can play every day. I bet you like Bellinger is probably playing 90% of the games. Goldschmidt is starting 90% of the games. Then these guys are starting 80% of the games. Like that's, something like that. There's a formula that they're probably very subtly not doing, not making you aware. I think they're probably doing it a week at a time where they're like, okay, here are the probable pitchers. Who do we think matches up best? Plus taking into account who your pitcher is, who the field is, who you think might need a day, etc. But I think clearly what we've seen for about 3 weeks now, 2-3 weeks from Grisham was brought here to be a fourth outfielder, played himself into a lot more playing, played himself out of playing time last year, played himself into playing time this year, seems to maybe be playing himself out of playing time again at this point, which will become even maybe a little more of a factor once Stanton returns. So I would not be surprised if we saw Dominguez's playing time expand at the cost of Grisham, and yet I'm not sure I want either of them on the field if there's a lefty starter. But that becomes a navigation situation also. Do you want to play that roster game? So like let's assume a week from now Stanton comes back. I assume that's Pablo Reyes, right?
Can't stand watching him play baseball anymore, but yeah.
Right. Assume that's Pablo Reyes, right? As he goes, Stanton comes up. Yankees trade for right-hand hitter. I assume that's Peraza. But if it's a right-hand hitting outfielder, what do you do about your backup infielder?
Is DJ LeMahieu part of that?
Well, at this point, I'm saying you get a right-hand hitting aggregate of thoughts. You acquire Austin Hayes from Cincinnati, who has a real long history of hitting lefty pitching, right? And I assume at some point Cincinnati might become a seller. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if they'll trade Austin Hayes. Again, that won't matter to our good friends. But like, if you were to do that, where Austin Hayes is going to be your left fielder against all lefty starters,
Mm-hmm.
well, LeMahieu's on the team as a starting second baseman. Chisholm's the starting third baseman. You literally now don't have a backup infield. You can't do it. You can't do that. So then, like, do you trade Grisham? Do you send Dominguez to the minors and your platoon is Grisham slash the righty hitter? I don't think you want that. So like it feels to me like the righty bat has to be somebody who can play second, third, and the left field. Now go try to find that.
Willie
That is
Castro.
hard. Yeah, but he like Minnesota's in it.
Yeah.
He's not having a very good year this year. But like maybe like Zach McKinstry on Detroit is kind of that, like maybe, I don't know, like, but
But
yeah,
Detroit's
you know,
good. Detroit's really good.
Detroit's really good. Detroit's really good. They in some ways they have too many movable pieces. I'm sorry, McKinstry, as I said it, I realize is a lefty hitter.
Yeah.
Uh, who was I thinking about on Detroit? Oh, Andy Ibanez.
Oh, okay.
History of hitting lefty pitching. He could certainly play second or third. I don't know if you could put him out in left, but
Yeah, it's gonna be that type of player. What you're saying, though.
but you see, when you're limited to 13 position players, as teams are, and Stanton can't take the field, you could do the hey, Volpe plays every day anyway, but like on the day he does get hit on the elbow or something, and you got to throw somebody at shortstop, you can't literally have no backup infield because you can't play LeMahieu every day anyway.
Yeah.
You'll run him into the ground and get the worst. Even if LeMahieu's really good again, like, or by the way, useful again, one of the ways you're going to keep him useful is play him 3 out of 4 maybe, as opposed to every day. And so I do think Peraza either sticks because he gives them second, short, and third, or they get a player who can
Do both
maneuver.
outfield and infield.
Yeah, and
That's where the Oswaldo Cabrera injury really hurts you.
it's where the Oswaldo Cabrera injury really hurts you.
Yeah.
Because he also could, in a pinch, have gone and played shortstop.
Absolutely. Joel, I want to bring this all wrapped up for Joel's notebook, and we're going to stick with the roster.
This is a real surprise to me. You usually give me some heads up about what the notebook
No,
is.
because I think you already know well, not you don't know, but like I think you can well versed in speaking to this. It's about DJ LeMahieu, and I read your column yesterday after the game about it, and you spoke to him to what you've already asked him about. Does he have a clock and window here? I just want you to give us a sense here of where this is going with DJ LeMahieu. Like, do you think there's still enough ample like size and time for him to prove himself that he can be a contributor? Because when you see him hit a home run last night and you see him have RBI singles, it's like, okay, you could see a little bit of the old DJ LeMahieu. I don't think he'll ever be that, but can he be 75% of old DJ LeMahieu from 2019? I don't know. That's a question I think a lot of people are asking themselves right now.
So, Ryan, I'm always appreciative of the people who watch, but I'm sure they're not logging every episode. I think starting in spring training and multiple times since then, I've pointed out like the potential value of LeMahieu, and that sometimes gets an eye roll from you. I'm certainly sure it gets an eye roll from the fans out there. And I think I've always said, I think it's like a 10 to 20% chance that he A, is successful, and B, is healthy enough to make successful matter. And one of the most important books I ever read was a book called Innumeracy about our illiteracy with numbers. And when I say something like 10 to 20%, I wonder if people understand that means I'm saying there's an 80 to 90% chance that this won't work. And you've decided in internet hell to hear only what you want to hear. And you have a literacy with numbers. So I still think, but my point always about LeMahieu was that the Yankees are going to need the righty bats. They had become very, after these years of being very right-handed, they were going to need it. And if he could be league average in field of position, which I thought would be third base, but he's so much more comfortable at second that they're doing that, is if he could be league average, and he's kind of right near there now. I think he's got a low 700 OPS. I think league average is someplace like 705, 710. And he's having representative at bats. Like when DJ LeMahieu, even the ball he smokes for an out yesterday to right field, that's a DJ LeMahieu at bat. It's a big clutch spot. He draws the count deep and he hit the crap out of the ball. And sometimes the ball goes into somebody's glove. You know, he hit one over the fence that couldn't go in anyone's glove, and he did this. He's gotten off good in June. I can I talked to Judge about it yesterday. I talked to the Yankee hitting coach James Rousing about it yesterday. It's just like, who is DJ LeMahieu in your clubhouse? And I know this doesn't matter to the average fan, but he is like a little bit of a hit whisperer. Like he's always talking like, well, publicly very whatever, but behind the scenes, he's a helpful player. He's a real pro. And he is a team first guy. He cares about winning. So his fan club from the top of the organization through the clubhouse attendance is huge in Yankee world, like Stanton's is, by the way. And so the thing the Yankees have to guard against is looking at LeMahieu with their hearts and looking at him with their cash register because they still owe him $15 million next year. And they'd like that to go to at least a league average player who helps them with stuff because his league average value to me, Ryan, is above league average because you know he could take an at bat against anybody anytime and he's never going to be afraid. Like he's just not going to be afraid. He's that kind of player. So uh can he be the guy who we've seen through these first week or so of June? That's probably asking too much. Uh, can he be better than the guy who ended May 0 for 15 with 7 strikeouts? Like he's probably in the middle there. In the middle there is league average. And league average would have great value for them. It would have great value because this player league average is league average who could play in New York, who could handle a big at bat, who's beloved in his clubhouse. Can he get there consistently and stay healthy? I would say there's a 10 to 20%. I would say there's an 80, 90 to 90%. Does everyone hear this? An 80 to 90% chance that that probably doesn't happen, especially the health thing. Because we've seen LeMahieu 2 years ago in the second half of the season, LeMahieu was LeMahieu. He had one great at bat after the other, and then he couldn't stay healthy. He's not, his body is breaking. It's like Stan. I think there's a real similarity between the players. They play a different style, but I think they're totally dedicated, totally team oriented, totally want to win with the Yankees, total support up and down the organization, and their bodies are betraying them in their mid to late 30s. And they're tough guys to say, yeah, we could trust them the rest of the way. And that's why I think they have to go and get a bat, a right hand bat. Um, and then it becomes, because of Stanton, a little bit of a roster manipulation about like, it's hard to find that player who hits right handed, who plays second, third, corner outfield, and does them well enough for a championship level team, a team that has that aspiration and can hit lefties. That's what you're looking for. Everything is publicly available as far as numbers and stuff. Go try to find it. Go try to find it. It's very, very unless you dedicate yourself and just say DJ LeMahieu is going to be the right hand hitter off the bench because we're going to get a second baseman or a third baseman. But even if you do that, go find that. A Yankee official said something really, really fascinating to me about 2 weeks ago when LeMahieu was playing second base, and I was like, LeMahieu was a good third baseman, and it became obvious he feels much more comfortable at second. And Jazz, to his credit, is totally fine with going to third if he thinks that's for the best. And he goes, by the way, it works for us also. Because if you're telling us to just go find a third baseman in the market, he said, good luck. He said, now if you tell us we can open it and it could be a second or a third baseman in the market, now we've got a shot. And so I think that they're trying to just open the world, knowing Jazz could always go back to second. So I think they're opening the world and saying, instead of just this group of players, we could potentially answer it with this group or this group. And I'm still not sure that they don't, like, even if they did that, they're going to have to play Dominguez or Grisham against lefty starters. And if you got one, you're going to use it against the Yankees because of the constitution of their lineup, which again necessitates that Stanton comes back and hits lefties, which he didn't last year, by the way. Didn't do well like he had in his career, and that they find a righty bat, another righty bat.
Right, because that gives you balance then. Because with Judge and Goldschmidt, who are both all-time great against
It's
left-handed
why,
pitching,
again,
then,
I'm not making judgment on the trade because we're not going to know for years. But if Narvaez was a guy you were starting against lefty pitching, and you're not taking a step back one iota defensively with him behind the plate, I do wonder about that now. Like JC Esquera is really a great story and a good dude to deal with. Carlos Narvaez would have made them a significantly better team in 2025.
give me a lot to think about here, Joel. Okay, so that's a show. I mean, I hear you on the 80 to 90% of what you're saying with DJ LeMahieu.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is just health, Ryan. It's like again, like I always encourage people who are very invested in things like you are in the Yankees. Like I don't have any investment. I'm not a fan. I don't care, right? So I always start with like, if you said to me today, Joel, how many games do you think the Yankees played game about like 65 last night? Was that right? We're right around there.
Yeah.
Let's say they have 100 left, about 100. If you were Vegas or work for one of the gambling sites and you had to set an over under for how many games DJ LeMahieu will play the rest of the season, what would that number be?
42 and a half.
Right. That's well under half the games because you don't believe he's going to stay healthy. And so that's all I'm saying is like you're invested in the team and you're telling me you don't think he'll play half the games. And that's not going to be because he can't hit probably. It's probably going to be because he can't stay healthy. I'll do the same thing. Stanton comes back with 80 games left. How many do you think he plays? If you had to do, now you're the house. You got to make sure you don't lose the money.
It's so difficult with Stanton, Joel,
right?
Because of the elbows, and it's such a foreign injury that we've never
and
really
the,
seen
and
before.
the, and the lower half, he's had nothing. The elbows are new. The lower half has betrayed him.
I'm not even. But now that he's a full-time DH, it feels like he's. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be healthy lower half-wise, but because that can always happen with Stanton. But like this elbow thing feels different, and that it's so unstable, and you really don't know what the hell is how he's gonna respond to actually, because you could hit against this high velocity pitching machine all you want, but when you're in the moment and like everything is all about this next pitch and you're swinging as hard as you can as Stanton does, I have no idea how his elbows are going to respond.
But again,
to that. And
it would probably be if you made the house, you'd probably try to split the baby, right? You'd say like, okay, if I 80, 40 and a half.
I was saying
right?
30.
Right? Like, so, and do it for everything we do. Like, what do you think Judge's final batting average will be? What do you think Rodon and Fried's final ERAs will be? What do you think? Like, if you do that, I know, like, I always try to tell people who are invested, act like you're the house, not just that you're a Yankee fan or a Met fan or a Dodger fan or whatever. You're the house. And you have to make sure the house wins money. Tell me the number. Well, if it's that number, that means they're going to not play more than half the games. If Rodon's ERA is going to finish at 360, that means he's got a lot of really bad starts coming.
Yeah.
Right? If Aaron Judge is going to hit 365, he's going to hit great the rest of the year, but he ain't going to hit this great, right? Because he's going to drop 35 points in his batting average. It's just like play the house.
Yeah, I mean,
play the house. Like when you're a fan, it's always the thing. It's like, we'll do this thing with trades and people will be like, oh, they should get this guy. And I'm like, yeah, I get you. You're the Yankees. You're a Yankee fan. If you were that team, would you do the trade? Don't tell me what you would do. Tell me what they would do. And I'll give you, I'll certainly say this a lot between now and July 31st. It's a great line Billy Beane gave me 30 years ago. I said to him, I proposed a Yankee A's trade. I'm trying to think if I was even still on the beat. I think it's probably post beat. I'm a columnist, but it's 25 to 30 years ago. And so I'm not even sure he's the GM. He might be the AGM to Sandy Olson in Oakland, but he's with Oakland, and I've pre-Moneyball identified that this is a smart guy who I could go to and like say, hey, what do you think of X? and I proposed a trade. And in some ways, he called me a curse word moron. He was like, what are we doing here? And he goes, I go, I don't understand. He goes, for me to trade this player, it would hurt me a lot. It would really hurt me to trade this. If the Yankees don't hurt equally or more, it's not a fair trade. You haven't caused the same amount of pain for the Yankees that you're causing for me. Until you're ready to cause that amount of pain for the Yankees, don't propose this shit to me. And I was like, you're right. I was thinking of it as, hey, if I were the Yankee GM, I'd want player X. And I wasn't thinking I'm the Oakland GM and I'm like, okay, if I even think about trading player X, who I love, who's really good, who's Freddie Peralta, who's been probably one of the 5 to 10 best starters in the history of the Milwaukee Brewers, who's pitched playoff games in this period where they've had more sustained success than ever before. He's been no less than like the number 2 starter. Like, I've got to trade Freddie Peralta. And like, I turn to you and say, well, if I'm going to do that, you got to give me like George Lombard. And you go, George Lombard? I'm not trading George Lombard. And I'm like, right. You're asking me to have a lot of pain, but you shouldn't have any pain at all. This should be a lily pad for you, right? And it's just that thing is, as you think about the trade deadline, as you think, it's very hard for fans. I get it. I deal with fans. Well, I write for fans. I love fans. Like, I don't have a freaking job without fans. But you're invested in a very narrow thing, which is your fandom. Like, hey, he's great, whatever. Right. Stop acting like he's great. Act like you're Las Vegas. And you've got to tell me what the final number is. Act like you're the other general manager. What would you ask for from the Yankees to give up this thing that's incredibly painful for you to do? It's just another way to look at it when it's how I look at it because I don't care. Like the Yankees will get a player, they won't, they'll win, they won't. I don't care. Just don't care. But you do. And I think to kind of get in the mindset of what's possible, it's a little bit like, what did I think about it on March 27th? And what do I think about it today? Like if I were the house.
I that's why I'm not too high or too low after a weekend that we just had with the Red Sox. But at the same time, I think you're identifying a lot of what I'm seeing in that there's underlying issues here and that they need to address a lot of them. And you've highlighted all 3 of the positions in need.
But if we were doing a Toronto or Tampa or Boston or Baltimore webcast, they would have more problems. It's the other thing to remember is you're very, and by the way, I'm not downplaying that the Yankees have issues that can undermine them. I was real, like, I think that they've had an incredibly successful 60 games and that their front office should be really credited because when this season began, I was like, to me, it feels like there's a 1 in 5 chance, that's 20%, that their season could go horribly, horribly wrong because their starting pitching is in such bad shape. But Will Warren and Ryan Yarborough answered questions, and Fried and Rodon pitched at 125% of what I thought was possible for them, right? In Rodon's case, maybe above that. So, like, they did what a good organization did. They found answers, and their best players rose to the moment, which is all you could kind of ask for from a team. And so they solved it. To me, that problem is still sitting there. Like, I don't fully believe in anybody not named Max Fried. And even Max Fried, I don't think will pitch to a 1.35 ERA this season. Like, I think he'll pitch to a 3 ERA. And so that's a lot of runs between now and the end of the season for the guy I believe in the most on the team. And so I still think that could undermine them. Mm-hmm. But if we're sitting there and we watch Walker Buehler pitch and we watch Lucas Giolito pitch, and that's where money is invested, and they're guys who are going to pitch 2 out of every 5 starts, that is a much bigger problem than the Yankees have.
Yeah.
Right? Tanner Houck, when he pitched this year, was like the worst pitcher in the major leagues. Like the problems, your problems are problems. And I'm not saying that they're not problems that could spin out of control and cause the Yankees to start dropping record-wise, maybe even in the stand, etc. But everything is by comparison, and every team in the division's problems are greater than the Yankees. Doesn't mean the Yankees don't have to solve them. Doesn't mean the Yankee problems won't now exacerbate at 100%. Well, maybe Toronto will camouflage some of its problems, or Tampa Bay will outpitch some of their problems. But the Yankee problems, if we were sitting and saying, let's list the three biggest problems for each team, we'd say, the Yankees are looking for a supplementary right-hand bat and somebody who can maybe pitch the seventh or eighth inning, and a starter who could start game two.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
the
sitting
start of
with
game two is pretty big.
right, but Toronto needs somebody who would start game one and two. Tampa needs somebody who start game two, probably.
I mean, Toronto and Tampa, up to your point, though, Joel, like they haven't played well at all this year until recent.
Right,
Like,
but they don't have as good of players as the Yankees, which is why they haven't played well. I'm
Correct.
saying the Yankees' problems are lesser. Judge and Fried are so good that if they stay upright and performing, it will be very hard for somebody to beat the Yankees in the AL East.
I agree.
But having Judge and Fried kind of makes your problems lesser, right? Like Boston has Crochet, so maybe they have Fried, but do they have a hitter like Judge? No, I mean, nobody on the
They
planet
thought Devers was going to be like that. Not
right?
not Judge, but yeah.
I mean, it's good, but they're both lesser. I'd rather have Fried than Crochet. I'd rather have Judge than Devers, right? Like, go to Toronto. Like, oh, Vlad Guerrero Jr. is good, not that good. Like, Kevin Gossman is good, not that good.
I know.
Like,
But
like
again, this is the Yankee. I mean, this
and
is
by the way, like if the Blue Jays fall out of it, and I assume the Blue Jays are going for it, all their front office people are in real trouble if they don't make the playoffs and maybe don't even make a run. So I think they're not going to give up. I realize this guy has probably got lesser stuff than he used to have. I love Kevin Gossman. I think Kevin Gossman could pitch a big game for you.
Yankees have beat him
And
up a lot lately.
and he has a lot of money for him next year. So like, does a team like Toronto, if they spiraled out of it? Because by the way, I'm thinking about eating for two here. Like, I'm always thinking about the Mets. Like, the Mets have the same issue to me as the Yankees, which is I compared in a column this week, I compared the Mets rotation to the Indiana Pacers, where you're like, Senga is kind of Halliburton. He's not like the best, but he's really good, like you whatever. And all the other players are like Siakam and Neesmith and what, like, they're good. Like, you like that they're on your team. Like, all five Met starters are good. Plus, they might get Minaya and Montas back. Plus, they have Blackburn. They have like an NBA group. Like, they're like the Paces. But I wouldn't start any of them in game two and feel comfortable. And so, like, when I talk about Freddie Peralta or Kevin Gausman, know that I'm thinking about them a lot for not just one New York team. I'm thinking if the Mets traded for a starter, it also has to be a guy who pushes whoever you think, Minaya, Montas, Clay Holmes, David Peterson, to three. Like, Senga's going to start one or two. Who starts the other one? Like, if it's Minaya started one or two last year and a team went to the NLCS, fine. I think the Mets think they're going to fix Frankie Montas and he's going to be a high-end starter. Good luck with that. Maybe. He's got great stuff, and when they've gotten guys with stuff over the last couple of years, they've done great wonders with them. But I kind of keep looking at them also for that. So that's my point is, like, the Mets have a better record than the Yankees, and I'm not sure that the Mets have fewer problems than the Yankees. The Mets don't have a lefty reliever to trust, and they really need that if you're going to get through, like, Harper Schwarber, Ohtani Freeman, Tucker, Crow Armstrong, Bush with the Cubs, like whoever they're getting through in the National League. They need, to me, a trustworthy guy. So, and like, the Mets are really good. The Mets, like the Yankees, are like in the heavyweight division. So all I'm saying is the Yankee problems might spiral them out of control, but I think by comparison, there's so like, you're a fan, you really worry about it.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of like 26 other teams, 25 or 26 other teams, you'd be like, God, I wish I had the Yankee problems.
I hear you, Joel. I hear you. But also at the same time, that's why it's fun being a Yankees fan, and we get to talk about this every single week with you. We appreciate you as always for giving us your time, man, and breaking down Yankees baseball. And we'll talk to you soon. All right, bud?
All right, Ryan.